Let's talk about something that is, well, just super frustrating for anyone trying to learn a new language. You know the drill. You spend all this time with flashcards, you memorize grammar rules, you can read and understand hundreds, maybe even thousands of words. But then, the moment of truth comes, a real live conversation, and your mind just goes blank. It's that gap, right? The gap between everything you know in your head and what you can actually say out loud. That's what we're going to tackle today. I mean, does this feel familiar? You've got all the puzzle pieces right there, floating around in your brain. But when you actually need to put them together in real time, they just won't connect. It's maddening. But hey, you're not alone. This is the central challenge for pretty much everyone trying to go from just knowing a language to actually speaking it. And it turns out there's a specific kind of practice that's designed to build a bridge right over that gap. Now take a look at this. At first glance, it seems pretty simple, right? It sounds like an instruction you'd find in any old language textbook. But hidden inside this one little sentence is an incredibly powerful brain training technique. This isn't just about practicing words. It's about practicing in a way that actually copies the beautiful chaos of the real world. So, let's do that. Let's deconstruct this whole technique. We're going to break it down piece by piece and really look at the cognitive science that makes this simple exercise so incredibly effective at turning all that passive knowledge into confident, fluent speech. Okay, so that we're all on the same page, let's give this thing a name. Integrated dialogue practice. And the two keywords you really got to pay attention to here are integrated and dialogue. It's the mix of these two things that really creates the magic. See, this isn't about memorizing lists in a vacuum. It's all about weaving what you know into a dynamic, back-and-forth conversation. All right, let's start with the first big ingredient, combination. Why is it so darn important to mix up a bunch of unrelated topics? I mean, shouldn't you just master one thing at a time? Well, the answer has everything to do with how our brains actually find and use information. And this slide really shows you what's going on. Over on the left, you have the traditional way, right? Siloed practice. You study food vocabulary, then you practice a conversation only about food. It's comfortable, it's predictable. But look at the right. Integrated practice forces you to jump between these different boxes. It's unpredictable, it's challenging, and that, right there, is exactly what makes it work so well. Just think about the last real conversation you had with a friend. Did you stick to one single topic for half an hour? Of course not. You probably started talking about what you had for lunch, which then reminded you of a movie you saw, which then somehow led to a story about your commute that morning. Real life is messy. It doesn't stay in neat little boxes, so our practice shouldn't either. And this is the mental workout that's happening behind the scenes. When you're forced to jump from talking about, say, pizza to talking about the subway, your brain has to do this lightning-fast context switch. It's got to slam one mental drawer vocabulary shut and pull a completely different one open, just like that. This isn't just remembering words. It's building mental agility. It's like cognitive weightlifting for your conversation muscles. Okay, so now for the second part of the puzzle, the dialogue. We know mixing up topics is crucial, but why does it have to be a dialogue? I mean, why not just talk to yourself or write out a monologue? This comparison really gets to the heart of it. When you're just reciting flashcards or practicing a monologue, you are totally in control. There's no pressure. But a dialogue? A dialogue brings in another person, and that changes everything. You're forced to listen, to actually process what they said, and then come up with a response, all in real time. It's the difference between practicing punches on a heavy bag that just sits there and actually sparring with a partner who punches back. Exactly, because real communication is never, ever a one-way street. Dialogue practice forces you to train the entire loop. You're not just pulling a word out of your memory. You're picking the right word, putting it into a good enough sentence, and saying it in a way that makes sense based on what you just heard, all in just a couple of seconds. So let's put it all together. When you take the brain-scrambling challenge of switching topics and you combine it with the real-time pressure of a real conversation, well, that's it. You've created the perfect training ground for building genuine fluency. And you know, it's so important that we rethink what we mean by fluency. Fluency isn't about being perfect. It's not about knowing every single word in the dictionary or never making a grammar mistake. It's about being able to get your point across. It's about handling a conversation that suddenly zigs and zags without completely freezing up. It's about being resilient. And this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? Yeah, practicing one topic at a time will get you somewhere. Sure, practicing a monologue helps a bit. But when you combine them, when you do integrated dialogue, the result isn't just 1 + 1 = 2. It's more like 1 + 1 = 10. You're building a skill set that's way more robust and flexible. So, to sum it all up, this method works because it trains you for reality. It builds that mental quickness you need to switch gears. It mirrors the beautiful messiness of real conversations. And most importantly, it forces you to go from passively knowing something to actively using it. It tests what you can do, not just what you know. And the really incredible thing is, this idea goes way beyond just learning a language. Think about it. A musician who only ever practices scales versus one who improvises with a band. A programmer who only does textbook problems versus one who's building a real, messy app with a team. The principle is exactly the same. So that leaves us with one last question. A question for you to really think about. Look at the skills you're trying to build in your own life. Where are you just practicing the isolated bits and pieces, the scales? And how can you start mixing them together, putting them under pressure, and turning them into a dynamic, real-world performance? Because the answer to that might just be the key to unlocking your next level.